Hello, trainers, and welcome to the Critical Hit GG coverage of the finals of the Video Game Master Regional Championships here in Dallas, Texas. My name is Brendan Lewis, and I am joined by the incomparable Regina Ang Lee, and we're going to be bringing you all of the finals action here in just a moment as both players are set up on stream and ready to go. Regina, it has been a really exciting top cut so far.
As you can tell, I'm out of breath from how exciting all these matches have been. And, just running all across from the venue as well. But, yeah, I mean, these guys' journey to get to this finals match has been absolutely insane. I mean, Brandon coming back from, that rematch from Swiss, having lost to Megan, and then coming back from that, getting that those wins against Josh in that top cut match as well. We finally got to saw that Terrakion, which honestly
didn't do anything, but hey, it was cool to see. And we do have the bracket up on stream for you guys, so you can take a peek at the path that both of these players have paved to the finals here in Dallas. And of course, Brandon was victorious over Megan in top 8 before defeating Josh Meckham in top 4 to advance to the finals of the Dallas Regional Championship. On the bottom side of the bracket, Nick Navarre taking down two extremely strong players in Ken Huang and Aaron Traylor to advance to the finals. So both players definitely earning their spot here in the finals of the Regional Championship. And Regina, an interesting little tidbit that definitely can speak to our tournament structure a little bit is these are the two players who finished Swiss at X and 2.
Ooh, oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hey, that resistance helped them in the end, and now they fought their way up to this final spot. So that just kind of shows you, like, always just keep fighting out no matter what, because you never know where you're going to end up here. And like,
right, and they did both sneak in as the 7 and 8 seed here in our bracket, and now have won 2 more sets to get their berth here in the finals, as we do show both players up on stage, both looking
so
very
excited.
very focused and ready to go. You can tell that they're definitely warmed up at this point. Both players did play extremely well in their stream matches here in Dallas. And they've got one more to go here, Regina.
I'm so excited for this.
To claim a lot of championship points, a lot of US dollars, and then really just like the great, a regional championship is a really nice title to have.
I know Brandon for sure isn't in the running for the stipend races here, but I'm not 100% sure if Nick is or not. Because I know he consistently gets CP, obviously, in like his home area, like with Ohio events happening and whatnot. So I mean, him winning here could also just kind of upset that stipend race. And potentially, I'm not 100% sure.
I think it's possible that it even could for Brandon as well, because I think in some sense the circuit is kind of set up in a way that it does benefit like big finishes very well. So even if you're not in the stipend race, maybe Brandon, I think he had a top 8 in Costa Mesa, and then also I'm assuming he's gone to locals. You can speak to that a little bit better than me. So even if he's just kind of got maybe a little handful of championship points at this point in the format, tacking on that big regional champion number can very easily kind of propel you into the upper echelons of that race. So a lot on the line for these two players, and they both have definitely shown that they are deserving of it over the course of their runs here.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, if Brandon wins this will be a first regional win, and it'll be really nice for him because he actually runs the Triton Gaming down in the UC San Diego back in Southern California. And so, I've always had the pleasure of working with him for some of their streams as well, and it's been really fun to see, like, to know him from that event, and then to see him kind of come up here and be like, hey, there's a couple people from San Diego here as well to like offer that support. So it'll be really nice. Yeah, like I know next week he'll be going for a PC, so even more opportunities for championship points for him as well. But I mean, obviously Nick isn't gonna go down without a fight. Right,
and of course on the flip side of the story is across the table from Brandon would be quite a story for Nick to add a second regional championship to kind of his collection of achievements that he's already put together. And of course, he's a very popular community member, both in real life and online, very involved in a lot of different online communities. And it would really be, something for, there just aren't that many players that have won one regional championship, let alone a second regional championship. And I think that would really cement him as one of the game's top players if he hasn't been already.
All right.
Regina, we are getting ready to jump into our final match here as both teams for your regional finalists, Nick Navarre on the bottom and left side of your screen, and Brandon Huang on the top and right side of your screen. You see their teams at the bottom of your screen. And Regina, tell me what they are.
You've got on nails inside that Gengar, Groudon, Venusaur, Xerneas, Serena, and Nintendo, which we just saw a while ago, and then Brandon on your right side, that Tapu Koko, Lunala, Kyogre, Kartana, Incineroar, and Terrakion. So we've got sort of that classic Groudon Kyogre matchup again. Nails locking in right now already. Oh, and Brandon right after.
Yeah, and they're both ready to go, and I think we actually did see a matchup I think they were actually on stream against each other in our Swiss match yesterday, and we did see that Gengar was something that Nick showed that he was like looking forward to bringing to this matchup, and it was promptly sky dropped and then knocked out the next turn when Brandon did go with that lead that we've seen him use a lot with that Assault Vest Tapu Koko and that Toolkit Lunala that has a lot of tricks available to it. And Nick kind of responding to this this option that Brandon did show off yesterday by bringing a fake out user next to his Gengar to prevent a turn 1 sky drop. So this vastly improves the position of Gengar, and it might be able to just go straight for a Z move into that Lunala slot.
Yep, and so like you said, that Incineroar and Gengar lead here from Nick versus that Tapu Koko and the Lunala. And like you said, it is a rematch here in Swiss again, but Nick was on the losing end yesterday, and I think Brandon is hoping to keep that going. That Incineroar is going to make it a little tough alongside that Gengar, like you said, the fake out pressure and that ability to just go for the Ghost DMZ. So if we see the Ghost move from both Pokemon here, that would be insane. It
would be cool. 2 different Ghost-type Z moves as, of course, the Lunalium is on one side of the coin and potentially the Ghostium. I don't think we've actually seen Nick use it before. It's been a lot of speculation, but his Gengar, I don't believe, has Focus Sash because I think we've seen it be knocked out, which would kind of lead you to believe that it does have that Z move. But Tapu Koko promptly being switched out in favor of this Kyogre here.
All right, yeah, so that Drizzle is going to be coming here as the fake out. Now it's going to go into that Kyogre, which was that Tapu Koko from before. We are going to get that Z move finally now from Nick's side of the field, that Ghostium Z. It could be an actual Ghost move like that Never Ending Nightmare, or it could be a potential for that Destiny Bond. But note it's going to be Never Ending Nightmare.
I just want to take a minute to talk about how, you know how when Pokemon use their Z moves, they get the angry eyes?
Gengar already has angry eyes,
so it just looks like he's falling asleep. But this Lunala is going to take a lot of damage, and
it
is going to knock it out
right there
through that Shadow Shield. A big Never-Ending Nightmare from Gengar here on turn 1, and you can see just exactly what that Gengar is there for. It's faster than Lunala, and it can knock it out through Shadow Shield with that Z, strong Ghost-type Z move, the Never-Ending Nightmare, and Gengar has already done its job.
Yeah, I mean, the Kartana comes in here, but it's going to be really rough because Brandon has lost such a great Pokemon having a side. But you know what would be really funny is if that Water Spout gets Curse-Bodied against that Gengar. That would be absolutely the worst case scenario for Brendan. I mean, Brendan's like not out of this yet. He's still got that Kyogre. We know it's a choice scarf. It has the ability to just, go for the damage here. It's not been, it's only been faked out already, but it still has a lot of HP. We might have the potential for the Groudon switch in here as well. So, Nick has a lot of options. He's taken out a very strong Pokemon on Brandon's side.
Yeah, and I think he's got what I would expect to be a pretty easy Groudon switch into that Incineroar slot right now, which would allow him to cycle the fake out pressure for later in the game and potentially allow Gengar to take that Water Spout once the sun has been put up, which would then in turn allow him to get something like a Shadow Ball off onto the Kartana slot. Of course, Gengar is naturally faster than Kartana, and having the very low special defenses that our little paper friend does would not really like taking a Shadow Ball very much, and here is the Groudon switch.
Yeah, and at least now, too, you can bring back in that Incineroar for an Intimidate later on to that Kartana as well. So the Water Spout here now from that Kyogre in the sun isn't going to do as much, and both of these Pokemon take it so comfortably, that Groudon especially here. The Shadow Ball, like you said, is going to be going into that Kartana most likely to break that Sash as well and make it an easier Pokemon to take down in that next turn.
And Gengar is already putting in a ton of work here, has taken one knockout on its own and effectively taken another, leaving Kartana with 1 HP. But Kartana retaliating with a Smart Strike to take that knockout on Gengar and will start to accumulate Beast Boosts. It is at +1 right now, but of course Nick has saved his Incineroar in the back to potentially switch in. And while Incineroar really does not like tasting
the water,
tasting those rain-boosted Water Spouts, it really doesn't mind them in the sun so much.
Yeah. Well, what's nice too is now you've got, if you bring out that fake out, you can at least stop that Kartana, and then, your Groudon can actually take another Water Spout. So either way, though, you've kind of got this ability to take out another Pokemon on Brandon's side or stop the Kyogre. And, I mean, we're actually going to be getting that Xerneas instead. So still in a pretty nice position, though, for Nick, because, even if you have that Water Spout damage into that Xerneas, Kartana is going to be going down at some point here.
Yeah, and those Water Spouts now are really going to be doing very little damage to Xerneas. You saw how little it did just to Gengar, and now tack on the extra bulk that Xerneas has naturally. Water Spout's really not doing a lot of damage to that Xerneas, but of course Kartana, now that it does have that Beast Boost, is going to have potentially the opportunity to knock out both of these two Pokemon on the field. So if Brandon is able to correctly select his target, or maybe call that Incineroar switch in, he could definitely continue this Kartana snowball here. The offensive pressure that he has is definitely still present.
Yeah, I mean, Kartana is such a nice Pokemon to have with that focus dash. It requires 2 attacks to at least take out, and that always creates a problem for people because now you have to invest more into that Kartana, leaving that Kyogre Soda free, and now we've got that Protect from the Xerneas, so we're going to make sure that Kartana can't get another Smart Strike into it. Hasn't been, you know, it's still at +1. The Water Spout from this Kyogre is going to knock out that Groudon at this range, even with that stun, because we did see it take so much damage on that switch in. But at least now Nick is going to be able to bring in that Kartana to, you know, help safely set up that Xerneas for that next turn later on. Smart Strike obviously going to that Protective. I mean, Nick sacrificing that Groudon at least allows him to bring back in that Incineroar with a fake out pressure. Right,
he has options with the remaining eggs that he does have into that Xerneas basket, as he will get this fake out pressure from bringing Incineroar onto the field, which will threaten both a knockout onto Kartana and eliminate the Beast Boost that it had accumulated already. And this is really a nice position for Nick to try and start setting up that Xerneas, because he can allow that Kyogre Water Spout, but it's really not going to do a lot of damage to either of these two Pokemon. So it's going to take some really fancy footwork here from Brandon to try and play around this late game Xerneas sweep, because Fake Out plus Geomancy is not something that he's positioned to stop right now.
Yeah, and this is one of those few times I think that we've seen on stream where the Xerneas setting up, you know, Geomancy later on is actually going to be really possible and actually get some mileage out of it, as that Kartana is being switched out for that Tapu Koko that we had seen earlier from that first turn Fake Out going into what, you know, was that Kartana for that knockout, but instead going to be that Tapu Koko. Obviously, this Kyogre being locked into Water Spout, it doesn't really do anything here. I mean,
not even a 2-hit KO.
Yeah, I mean, you could also, though, just... The problem is you could reset the weather and try to do that, but now that the Geomancy is up, you've got a fast Xerneas.
Right, yeah, and it looks like this is definitely going to be a really good position for Nick, as he's taken only just a little bit of chip damage in exchange for a Geomancy. One of the things that Brandon does kind of gain by switching into his Tapu Koko here is he does prevent Nick from taking a knockout with Dazzling Gleam. And now that we know he has that Assault Vest Tapu Koko, while it's next to Kyogre, he's not going to be able to pick up a knockout here unless he goes for a Moonblast, which would free up one of the other slots to move. So he has given himself a little bit of wiggle room by getting Tapu Koko onto the field, but he still has that 1 HP Kartana in the back, which just doesn't have any room to operate while Xerneas is around, and it's not looking like Brandon really has a way to get it off the field.
And then the problem with that, too, is like Tapu Koko, usually such an offensive Pokemon, because it's an E-set, is more of the Pokemon around here. Like, we've seen the Electrolib and the Sky Drop, but those aren't exactly hard-hitting moves, even on terrain. I mean, the Xerneas is a very safe Pokemon to have right now. It's at +2 special defense. It can go for those Moonblasts. It can, you know, go like for either one of these Pokemon. And I think Brandon correctly identifying that it does go for the forfeit here, and there's not much you can really do against it.
Right, I don't think he really had any outs. If he was going to try to play to something, he probably could have gone for something like a Nature's Madness and just hoped to crit a Water Spout or something like that. But really, you know, if he was taking damage, the Water Spout wouldn't have been doing anything. So definitely was on the back foot, and I don't think he really had a way out. And that was just really well played by Nick. And I think some people will say, you know, it's been kind of like not a saying, but, you know, a prevailing thought back since 2016, where some people will say, you know, I think my best option is just to lead Xerneas and see what I can do in the early game. If I get it going, I just win. And some people are like, no, no, no. The best option for you is to put Xerneas in the back and wait till you clear its checks. And that is exactly what Nail did in that game by knocking out that Lunala. We know it has Roar. He eliminated the threat of that, and then once he got it onto the field with that fake out pressure for free, it was game over.
Yeah, and I think now the big problem is Brandon has to see how he can take out that Gengar, because that Gengar is now officially that biggest threat on his set. I mean, Groudon, you know, you can counter that a little bit with both Kartana and the Kyogre, but if you can't have your Lunala out there safely and you can't stop that Gengar, then we saw it, you know, break the sash on the Kartana with that Shadow Ball. We saw it take out that Lunala. It provides so much offensive pressure for Nails against Brandon's team.
Right, and I think for Brandon, he's going to have to start thinking in a similar way to Nick, right? He needs to keep that Lunala around to do a lot of different things, right? He needs to manage the Xerneas. He needs it to try and, you know, really mount any sort of offense against Groudon in the sun. Kartana can kind of do that, but it can be very difficult for him. So I think there's definitely kind of a situation where if Brandon does kind of tuck that Lunala away for later and lead off with something like a combination of, you know, maybe Tapu Koko and Kartana, or maybe Incineroar and Tapu Koko, maybe Incineroar and Kartana, maybe try and lay down some offense and then position yourself to get your restricteds in later after you've weakened up Nick's team and hopefully gotten rid of Gengar at that point, which definitely definitely seems to be a big problem. I think maybe that might be a better direction for him to go as far as a game plan.
And especially because I think that Tapu Koko, having had it for so long in the back after its like first turn appearance, it's such a supportive Pokemon that you need it out there for much longer. But we are going to get a Lunala Kyogre lead once again, which actually, sorry, we are going to get a Lunala Kyogre lead, which we have the Lunala back on the field, but now we've got the Venusaur and the Groudon as well. So
lead.
we've got, yeah, you know, that potential for that the Sleep Powder. We also have Sun as the dominating weather now.
Right. And I'm actually kind of surprised to see Nick depart from that lead that works so well from him, because I thought Incineroar Gengar was something that would have been very difficult to punish. And if Brandon had gone back to this this game plan, or had gone with this game plan in response to a Gengar Incineroar, a Fake Out plus a Ghostium into Lunala might have been you know, tough thing for Brandon to respond to unless he had his own Incineroar in the back. But both players opting to adjust, and this is a really, really tough position for Brandon, because something like a Sleep Powder into Lunala is a really easy play for him to make right now.
And that Kyogre is getting out of there, though. That Incineroar coming in is going to get Intimidate onto both Pokemon. Obviously more important on that Groudon, and gets that Fake Out pressure for that next turn. But like you said, the potential for that Sleep Powder to connect with that Lunala is going to be the most important thing here, as actually both players opt to take out their Weather Setter.
Oh, he's going to try and catch the Z move here.
Oh, we're going to get that that Incineroar back on the field now here as well. So another Intimidate going into that side, and another Fake Out potential for Nails here as well. And, I mean, we've got that Sleep Powder coming in. Is going to connect into that Lunala. So this Lunala is not going to be moving. It is going to be a sleeping bat. I mean, the sun is out, so I guess it's going to be asleep for now.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't really have much of a choice, but luckily for Lunala, it will get to take its first turn of sleep here, which will allow it at least the potential to move next turn. But this is a really strong position for Nick, as he's gotten Groudon off the field and brought in something that's a little bit more threatening to Lunala in the form of Incineroar. Of course, Nick's coming in second means that it hasn't been intimidated. It will be a higher damage threat onto Lunala. Now, Brandon is really forced to try and pick his poison as far as which slot he fakes out. Do you want to fake out Venusaur, both get its sash and prevent a fake out? Seems like kind of a good option. Or do you need to fake out that Incineroar slot, or at least try to fake out an Incineroar slot to prevent a lot of Dark-type damage going into your Lunala? So he's definitely in a bit of a pickle here, and I think maybe trying to switch out that Lunala while faking out might be some way to, you know, circumvent some of the pressure, but instead, no, he's just selected Venusaur.
Yeah, we get the first turn wake up there, so the side shock there going into that Venusaur, which is, you know, which has its sash broken from that fake out, is going to be a game changer for him here. He picks up that knockout very cleanly. No fake out either from Nails' own Incineroar, though it does go for the U-turn instead. It's going to be able to break that shield on Lunala, but Lunala waking up is so important for Brandon. That's what he needed on this turn.
He absolutely did here, and that Sleep Powder giveth and then immediately taketh away the next turn, as he is able, Brandon, to pull it back because of what a chaotic move Sleep Powder can be. We saw him hit that 75% accurate move, but then promptly get the first turn wake up, in the sense that it only prevented Lunala from moving one turn and wasn't really able to remove the threat of it. He did break the Shadow Shield. He does get a free switch into the Xerneas here, and will likely be able to reset Fake Out pressure as well. But now Lunala is sitting here positioned to go for a Z move, to set up a Tailwind to Xerneas. It's still around.
Yeah, I mean, now you also have that game of playing, if you're Nick, do you set up Geomancy now, then you hope for, like, no Roar, or do you go for straight for the Z move if you're Brandon? And there's now a lot of options on the table for both players. You know, that turn wake up was, I think, what Brandon needed to come back from that. I'm pretty sure that Brandon has had Roar, because I think he showed it against Megan, or he showed it against somebody.
Yeah, he has Roar on his Lunala,
okay.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, now you've got so many options here for both of them. I mean, like, yeah, it sucks that you lost that Venusaur, but you're still in a position where you're able to at least deal damage. You've got, you know, your Groudon in back, so no Gengar this turn. That's sad, I think, right?
No, yeah, and I think that's probably interesting, and that's kind of one of the things that you can do, especially you'll see experienced players do it a lot, where you kind of try to you know, like, react to what you expect your opponent's reaction to you is going to be. And after the impact of that Gengar, you have to expect that Brandon was going to over-prepare for it. But Nick here, it looks like he's just going to go for 2 attacks into Lunala. He is not going to allow the opportunity for a Roar.
Yeah, but that Moonblast now is going to go into that Lunala, but Lunala still sticking around, is going to be able to get that Z move off, and it's going to do a lot of damage into that Xerneas, because there's no special defense boost either from
Oh no, this is definitely going to bring it down to the red Regina, and we did talk to our friend Aaron a little earlier, and, you know, it can be a roll depending on how your Xerneas is trained, and Nails does look like he has maybe a little bit of extra HP in his Xerneas that may allow it to just narrowly take the attack.
I think we saw it survive at 16
it's
HP
possible
before.
that maybe there's a very minute chance that it could just be knocked out by this, which would definitely be a game changer.
Yeah, so it's just going to come down to a matter of if it's a critical hit, if it's a roll, what's going to happen here. If this Xerneas survives and then next turn, oh, that's...
Oh, 20 HP.
20 HP is very, very close there. I thought, but if he doubles down into the Xerneas, is going to pick up that knockout now.
Oh, he gets it with U-turn.
Yeah. So, you know, Brandon covering his base, that critical hit obviously does like not matter because that's 20 HP, but...
I think it might have mattered.
Oh, because of the intimidating. That's right, that's right.
I think that was actually, that's
very close.
Interesting critical hit to get that U-turn off, and now the fake out pressure is going to be reset, and
the Kyogre's going to be able to come back, but so is... Oh, yeah. Kartana's going to be here, but Groudon's going to be able to come back. No Intimidate on that Kartana, though.
Right, no Intimidate on Kartana for right now, and it is going to be a U-turn for Incineroar as well, which will bust the sash and give Nails a switch back into his Groudon. But now it's just a matter of time for Brandon to get back into his Kyogre. This game is pretty much over at this point. He has two Pokemon that are weak to Water type in his Ground-type Groudon, and of course his Fire-type Incineroar. So as soon as that Kyogre takes the field, as long as it's not taking damage to do so, it's an easy Water Spout, take 2 knockouts, and on to Game 3 we go.
Yeah, I mean... You know, we were talking about that sleep powder and like the chances of running that, and I think I don't think I can emphasize enough how important that sleep that sleep wake up was just so
critical
so
to the whole set.
Yeah, and it just shows you how volatile Pokemon can be. Because I mean, you know, you've got 2 good Pokemon on here, and yeah, Kartana's sash is broken, but like you said, we have Kyogre in the back. You come in, bring in the rain, and you click Water Spout, and it's like, let's go to Game 3.
Right, and you know that's kind of a nice juxtaposition against like sleep powder related game plans, whereas, you know, we're looking at Brandon's 100% win condition. All he has to do is click Water Spout one time and he takes 2 knockouts. But Nick is playing, you know, with games that involve, you know, using sleep powder, which has, you know, a 75% chance to hit, and then you have the opportunity to either keep somebody asleep for 3 turns or 1 turn. That 1 turn wake up was definitely, you know, the turning point in this match. If they had stayed asleep for another turn, this game probably, and this set probably would have been over.
Yeah, and so that Kartana's being switched out now for that Incineroar. So you know, get at least an Intimidate into both these Pokemon. Can't reset that. Moon Guide Speed from that Lunala is going to be able to just deal some damage into that Groudon. And, you know, there's not a lot that like Nails can do here. I mean, the substitute is nice, yes, but I think you're just prolonging the inevitable here now, because now that Incineroar has that fake out, so you can stop Nails' own Incineroar, you can do some more damage to it, or just go after that Groudon, because Incineroar can't really do anything. A single target Water Spout, I mean, that.
Right, there's no way to prevent it, and I think we just saw Nick try and lock in the forfeit there, and he was really playing with that substitute. I think it's a smart thing to at least try. You're not revealing too much information. You know, everybody in the venue knows that you have substitute at this point, so you can maybe try and catch Brandon in a misplay, and if you're able to get a substitute up, then you have a win condition where when Kyogre takes the field, your substitute is still up, which would give you the opportunity to Precipice Blades at least one time. But no, Brandon is still, you know, making sure he's playing to his 100% win condition, gets damage down onto Groudon, and, you know, effectively ends the threat of that. So he's able to seal that up very cleanly. And really, Regina, like we talked about, the sleep powder into the 1-turn wake was really where this game pivoted. And I think Brandon was able to play the game really well after he got that 1-turn wake up. And that's just kind of, you know, it's just such a high-risk, high-reward move. You can keep multiple Pokemon asleep for 3 turns, right? Or you could have that one critical 1-turn wake-up, and that's where we are.
And I think what's so interesting is that both of them left behind a Pokemon that I think could have been so good for them. You know, one left the Gengar behind, the other one left the Tapu Koko, and both of these Pokemon work as both offensive pressure and support. And I want to say we will probably see that Gengar come back, because that Gengar was so good to use against Lunala with that, but also the Shadow Ball to be able to do as much damage as you could to Kartana. And just overall just threaten a lot of just sort of scary moves, because if you take out the Kartana, then Sludge Bomb does such high damage in general.
Yeah, it definitely does, and I think you're right. I think we probably see Gengar come back, but there's definitely, you know, a lot of different mind games that these players are playing right now at turn 0 with which Pokemon to bring, because you know, I think I agree with leaving Tapu Koko behind, but now that you've seen that Nails is not afraid to try and bring Venusaur, you definitely need to at least consider it, because if those sleep powders are starting to go around and you don't have a way to try and keep it in check, it could be really difficult for you. But Nick here has selected to go back to that Game 1 lead that worked so well for him with that Gengar and that Incineroar, and Brandon on the other side has selected to lead with his Kyogre and that Tapu Koko, which does make a reappearance on the coattails of that Venusaur.
Yeah, and so, you know, both of them bringing back the Pokemon that they left behind in Game 2 because they realize how important that kind of is here now. And like, you know, you have the Fake Out going possibly into that Kyogre, but now you've also got this Gengar that has that Ghost DMZ, Tapu Koko though with a Sky Drop, and it's able to take attacks really well. Flare Blitz isn't going to do anything here. I mean, Kyogre, even with the Fake Out, you know, damage, is still able to do so much with that Water Spout.
Right, and I think this is actually a pretty good lead for Brandon. I'd be kind of surprised to see Kyogre stay in here, but I think if he does have Incineroar in back, he's given himself a lot more room to maneuver here at turn 1. Where with Incineroar in back, you are threatening to just switch in and take that Never-Ending Nightmare very comfortably. So I think we may see something like an Electro Web followed by a switch into Incineroar, which would be a nice way to mitigate a lot of the game turn 1 options that Nick does have here, because it would be a really scary proposition to not fake out that Kyogre slot. You know, we've seen weirder plays before. We've seen people get really big, but I think you really have to. In Game 3 of the regional championships here, you really need to be careful. Yeah,
and we've got that Incineroar coming in now for that Kyogre. Like you said, if it takes that Never-Ending Nightmare, then at least, you know, Brandon's in a very good spot. That Intimidate going to go down into Nails' own side, and obviously that Fake Out for the next turn into whatever is not a Ghost type. The Fake Out going to stop what was
into
that Kyogre.
Gets
a critical hit. Electro Web, like you said here as well, going to get that speed control a little bit, and also boosted by that terrain, so it does a little bit more damage. And if we see that Z move on here, then Brandon has played an almost perfect turn 1 for himself.
Yep.
But we do just get the Shadow Ball here, so Nick not going to fall for that, doesn't want to risk it. Goes into the Incineroar spot, so at least he did not waste his Z move.
Yeah, I think that was a smart play for him, because that Never-Ending Nightmare is really a very critical piece of how he's going to manage Lunala. You know, you can do it to an extent with Incineroar, but you aren't generating enough offense always to prevent it from doing what it likes to do. And we've seen Brandon play his Lunala so well over the course of the weekend that you really need that Never-Ending Nightmare, and he just couldn't risk going for it on turn 1. It would have been just such an aggressive play to make, and luckily he did kind of holster it a little bit. And now that that Electro Web has gone down, I think we need to see Gengar leave the field, because it needs to be at max speed to outspeed Lunala. If this Electro Web stays around, then it can't threaten the Lunala as much as it could.
And maybe that's a really tough call now for Nick, because you're right, he has to make sure that that Gengar stays around for later on. But it is actually just going to go for a Protect instead. So probably trying to see exactly what Brandon is going to go for here, as the Volt Switch is actually going to go into that Incineroar. So Brandon going to be like, you know what, we're going to go after whatever's next to your Gengar just in case, allowing him to kind of pivot. If it's that Lunala, he's got to be really careful.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Regina. If this is Lunala and Incineroar hasn't gone for something like a U-turn to try and offset it, that could have been a really scary thing for Nick there if he had left his -1 speed Gengar on the field with Lunala coming out. But instead, no, he goes into his Kartana, and a U-turn will give Nick the edge here, allowing him to pivot back into something to reset his position.
I mean, I think that Kartana is in such a good spot, though, right? So even if you bring in that Groudon, the Groudon could go substitute, but now Anna has been, you know, not intimidated. It's going to be fast, and like it still has its sash. It's coming in for almost free here. That Gengar is still at -1 speed, and like you said, at some point, if Nails wants to hold onto that for a potential Lunala, that Brand, no, I don't think does he have Lunala here, because he's got.
Oh, that's right. He doesn't have. No, you're right. He has the Tapu Koko, the Kyogre. He's shown all 4. So
he doesn't have
no Lunala in the back. So that's really interesting. I guess that makes a lot more sense as to why he didn't bring it in there, because I think that would have been probably the place to do it, because he would have been threatening that Z move onto Gengar, and would have Nick to try and switch into that. But instead, Xerneas is going to take the field here. And this is getting really interesting, Regina. I think we're starting to see just the extent of what those game-to-game mind games, the effect they've had on these two players, to the point that Brandon has left his Lunala behind.
Which I don't think is actually a bad thing either, because you still have that Kyogre, which is really nice, because now we've also got you know, we've seen the knockoff play from Brandon is going to try to go into that Gengar. It's going to be super effective damage. This Kartana, not intimidated, could at least try to go for some sort of damage or a knockoff if you go knock out into that Gengar if you really want to. But the most important thing now is you're going to try to stop that Xerneas. And I think we have, no more Fake Out pressure though from Brandon.
No. And Gengar is going to leave the field here, potentially, presumably in favor of that Incineroar, so he will have Fake Out pressure. Fake Out plus Geomancy was the way he took that Game 1 victory. So Brandon is really either going to have to U-turn out and try and get himself into a better position to deal with Xerneas, or just double it and hope for the best here. And he's going for that -1 Smart Strike, and it's just not going to be enough in conjunction with anything Incineroar can do to knock it off the field. This is a Geomancy that's going to be in exchange for only 50% of for Xerneas' health, and you know that could be enough to get him rolling enough to win the game.
Yeah, and then that's the important part here is like Nails has found a way to be like, you know, I can set up safely here because I'm going to bring in that Incineroar. Incineroar. You know, I don't have to worry about a Lunala in the back, so Gengar can leave now, and I don't have to worry about it for a while. Sure, you've got Kyogre in the back, but if you bring in Kyogre here, I mean, if we get a U-turn into a Kyogre, you know, we might actually have a potential for maybe not a Water Spout, but maybe something like else to try to deal damage just to that Xerneas.
Right, and I think he is... you know, unfortunately, what he does have to do here is go into something that is not carrying Protect, right? He has the Assault Vest Tapu Koko and the Kyogre with the Fake Out pressure on the board. So Kartana still in an okay position because it has that Focus Sash. So if he gets the opportunity, another Smart Strike will be able to knock out this Xerneas, but it seems like to get that opportunity, he might have to let go of whatever he brings into this slot here, and it looks like it is Kyogre.
The nice thing, though, is that now Nails has to make a choice of what he's going to fake out, because if he fakes out the Kyogre, then you stop a Water Spout, but then you allow that Smart Strike to happen against Xerneas, or you get, you know, a Sacred Sword into Incineroar if you're expecting Protect. But if you fake out the like Kartana, then you're taking a Water Spout to both of these Pokemon. So I think this is now a tough call for Nick to decide as well.
Oh yeah, we're getting into the nitty-gritty here, Regina. This is the kind of thing that you hope to see in your Game 3 of a regional final. And, you know, both players definitely have a lot of plays that are available to them here, and it could come down to a little bit of a mind game. I think what I might expect to see is a little bit more of a safer option for Brandon, which would be to just get his Incineroar back into the Kyogre slot. He would reset Fake Out pressure and then kind of force Nick back into a position where he has to, you know, make the same call that Brandon is making right now, but instead he's going to get that Kartana off the field in favor of Incineroar.
Yeah, so like you said, we do get the Incineroar on the field, gets the Fake Out pressure, but also has it Intimidate against Nick's own Incineroar, and that Kartana is safe for another day. Still is going to have that Focus Sash intact, and now it's a matter of which one did he fake out? If he goes into that,
it has to be Kyogre.
Yeah, so that Kyogre, you know,
the
Dazzling Gleam. Yeah,
that might just be the game, Regina. He's going to go for a Dazzling Gleam. How much damage is it going to do to Incineroar?
And it picks up out on the Incineroar,
which rips the Fake Out pressure from the field, and
that was so much damage onto Kyogre as well. So you know,
Nick just got the Fake Out, just like you said. He got the Fake Out call right. He put it into the Kyogre, and now this is going to be extremely difficult for him to deal with. And really, all Nick has to do now is just get that Incineroar back off the field and cycle that Fake Out pressure to prevent Kartana. Just find some way to break its Focus Sash, and that's it.
Yeah, because about you Protect here with like the Kartana is waiting, because if Kartana can't get that second Smart Strike into that Xerneas, then you're still in a good spot. I mean, Kyogre didn't lock itself into a move, so you know it doesn't have to go for the Water Spout. It could go for something else. You still have Electric Terrain up for just a turn or two left. You also still have the Rain, so you can get those 100% Thunders if you have that move in one of your Pokemon slots. So I think Brandon losing that much HP on Kyogre is bad, but if you can get rid of that Xerneas, you might still be in a good spot. But instead, he is going to be withdrawing that Kyogre, brings in that Tapu Koko once more.
Right, and this is just kind of like in what previous games where he's just trying to respond to the Dazzling Gleam threat, and Nick is going to allow his Xerneas to be knocked out, presumably by this Smart Strike. But what that does is, just like in Game 2, where Brandon was able to seal up his endgame by getting his own Weather and Kyogre onto the field, it's going to afford Nick the same opportunity, because now Kyogre will be forced back onto the field after it's knocked out, and then all you have to do is bring in Groudon, and you know there's very limited pressure from Kyogre when it doesn't have its Rain up.
Yeah, and I mean, the U-turn is obviously going to knock out this Kartana, and is going to allow for sort of like that Intimidate Fake Out pressure once more. And it's just kind of like a good endgame now for Nails here. I mean,
it's a great endgame. Yeah.
You know, Tapu Koko is here, and so is Kyogre. The problem is Kyogre is going to get faked out, and then, you know, Tapu Koko is like a very like low health. That Gengar still has that that Z Crystal on there. So there's not much that Brandon can do to either stop this Gengar or anything else that Nick has.
Right, and I think he's got pretty close to 100% endgame here. I think really the only thing that he can really play to is just like an infinite amount of Precipice Blades misses, and you know, eventually that attack is going to hit. But right now, you know, Nick has a lot of options available to him. He can try and bring in Incineroar back in and just, you know, go for Fake Out plus Shadow Ball into Kyogre and not even need to use his Groudon until, you know, one of those two Pokemon is knocked out. Or he can just bring Groudon in right now. I think that's probably not the safest option, because you are subjecting yourself to critical hits to some degree. Potentially freezes or paralyze if he's carrying Ice Beam. But this is going to be very difficult. You know, it would take a strong series of both misplays, Precipice Blades misses, and any number of kind of like weird things for Nick to not eventually seal this up, and I think he can more than taste it, Regina. That regional championship is all but his at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and bringing in that Incineroar is the perfect way to ensure that. I mean, you know, you've got that ability to go for the Fake Out, stop Kyogre, stop Tapu Koko. Your Gengar is still there with that Shadow Ball. You don't even have to use the Z Crystal at this point. I mean, if you want to guarantee
I think he'll do it just because. I think, you know, you have your Z move. It's going to do the same thing here, but there's a very easy play for Nick to make where he fakes out Kyogre and just goes for that Z move or a Sludge Bomb into Tapu Koko, and at that point, it's really just a matter of time, and he is going to go go ahead and do that. Fake out into Kyogre, and the Sky Drop will prevent Gengar from doing something for at least one. Or the Incineroar.
It's just going for the Incineroar instead, but now we're going to get that Z move.
That
that goes.
Yeah.
So,
there it is.
I mean, it's a nice way to just kind of ensure that. I mean, you know, Nick is playing as safely as he can right now. The Z move is both just kind of, I think, a style and a guarantee of a knockout here.
It's a cool animation. I think we'll allow that for our eventual Dallas Regional Champion.
We'll allow that right now.
We'll allow it for our Dallas Regional Champion. And really a big congratulations to Nick, as these last couple turns are just going to effectively be a formality at this point. He's played extremely well on stream, and even presumably off stream. You know, I can't guarantee that, but with all the victories that he has had over the course of the weekend, he's put together just a really great run. And to put together a team that is, you know, has some of those chances like Precipice Blades and Sleep Powder, and really, you know, bring that together into something cohesive and consistent when it is kind of like inherently inconsistent is just really incredible. And there is the final attack, the Sludge Bomb into Tapu Koko, and your Dallas Regional Championship champion here in the Masters video game division is Nick Navarre. He will add a second regional championship to his trophy case today. So big, big congratulations.
Yeah, you know what I will say? I think it's very funny because the two Swiss rematches that we had, both the people who had lost in their Swiss
they
ended up winning. So, you know, Brandon won against Megan after losing to her in Swiss, and Nick, who lost to Brandon on stream yesterday, managed to win where it counted the most in the finals. So
it's a cool story.
It's
a really cool story, and I think that was a really nice. That set was a really nice cherry on top to the rest of the weekend. I think we had some really exciting matches, and that was a great one.
That was fun.
I think it came down a lot to those turn zeros in between games. What is going to be my Pokemon choice? And it almost seemed like Brandon chose correctly in that game 3. He chose the right Pokemon to bring to the matchup. He caught Gengar, did not bring Lunala, but Nick just played so well in that game 3. And for that reason, he is the Dallas Regional Championship. And congratulations to both players, but really a second regional championship is just an amazing achievement for somebody to get.
Yeah, and we will be having Nick back here in just a little bit so we can at least talk to him about how he's feeling right now and what is going through his mind during those 3 games. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back with your new Dallas Regional Champion.